Díver fad agus fáilte chuig on Q&A a nocht. Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's Q&A with myself Agus Siobhán. Is mis Gabrielle.
Is mis Siobhán agus chuil sibh.
Tá sé go híntaach sibh eáil. So we got a number of questions in, which is great, but you can always ask questions in the chat as well. So just leave a comment and we can come to that as we're going along. So I suppose we should just dive right in. And Siobhán, I'll ask you the first question, but I think we'll probably both have something to say about it. What is the hardest thing to learn in the Irish language, Siobhán?
Well, Irish is vastly different from English in so many ways, so that's a challenge in and of itself. I find many people struggle with sentence structure. What I mean by that is the word order in sentences in Irish are usually different from the word order found in English. The reason for this is that Irish is what's called a VSO language, and VSO stands for verb, subject, object. Now I'll explain that. A simple example of this is in the sentence Rinne, Mára, Aráin. Now some of you might actually understand that. Rinne, Mára, Aráin. It means Mára made bread, or literally made Mára bread. So that's the verb, the subject, the object. Now other languages that have a similar word order are Arabic and Classical Hebrew and even Hawaiian. So it's not just Irish that has that word order. All the other Celtic languages have that word order as well. So that's what some people find challenging. I think as you get more advanced, what you may find quite challenging is it also ties in with the question of word order, and that is the relative clause and clausal cuimhneasta. It can be quite tricky to get a hang of. You see, it refers to more complex sentence structures, and I'll give you an example such as an bord ar a bhfuil an leabhar, the table on which the book is. So as you can hear there in English, it's a bit more complicated, the table on which the book is. So that sort of stuff where the end of the sentence is referring to the start of the sentence and there's a bit of a plot twist in there, that sort of stuff. When you get into that, it can be a bit more complicated, I suppose, in any language, really. So
yeah, absolutely. I think I had the same idea that I think it's the word order really that people are caught on because they want to translate something directly from English to Irish. And it just doesn't work like that. We can't just go word for word translation. And as well as that, with the clausal cuimhneasta, we don't really speak like that in English anymore. So we don't say the table on which the book is. We say the table the book is on. You know, even though that's not necessarily the most correct way to say it. So that makes it even harder to translate, I suppose. Just as a bit of background, I should have started off with this, but we're from Bitesize Irish, in case anyone doesn't know. And we run online courses, as Gaeilge, for people learning Irish. And also we have an online community, which is called Pubble, where learners come together and discuss what they're learning, and we also challenge them daily with different tasks. And Siobhán runs a live video chat with our members called Bitesize Bio on a Tuesday as well. So that's our background, that's where we're from, and we've got all these questions from our members and our newsletter subscribers as well. So I think the next question is probably actually, we might jump down a few because it's related to the word order. And it is, please explain the syntax of the following sentence. Níl post ag an galín cliste. Now, we already said that Irish is a VSO language, but this, on the face of it, looks like it's not following that. But Siobhán, what would you say to that? I think it's something to do with object pronouns, but you might be able to add a bit to that.
Well, it is a bit different. I suppose it does vary a bit from the basic VSO. So a sentence structure. So it does begin with a verb, as is usual in Irish, but not necessary. So Neil, it's a form of the verb be, to be. Yeah. So Neil put, so literally what you really need to do with this sentence to understand its origins is to break it down into a literal translation. So I suppose the nearest literal translation you could do in English is no job at the girl clever. Now it means the intelligent girl does not have a job, but that's how you say it in Irish. If someone has something, you say that the thing is at them. So it's a completely different way of conceptualizing things. And I suppose every language has that. In every language, we think of things differently. So here, instead of having something, you say that the thing is at the person. And when you think of it, that's fairly logical. If someone has something, it is at them. So that's the logic there.
And so what I was getting to with the object pronouns is if something is egg is at someone or the someone, or if you have basically your pronoun, your preposition and then your pronoun, they're always at the end of the sentence. Well, usually, I mean, in this sort of case, they will be at the end of the sentence. So that's why it makes sense as well. Do you want to pick the next question, Siobhán?
All right. So I think we should go with, okay, since we're on, well, I think they're all really on grammar, to be honest. So maybe we'll take a break from the raw grammar and go on to this question here from Paddy in Minnesota. And it's, which English Irish dictionary do you recommend?
Excellent question. So there are a number, and they are all now online, which is fantastic. So my first recommendation is always to go to Teanglann. So that's TEANGLANN.IE. And there you'll find all of the most comprehensive Irish English and English Irish dictionaries. So the big ones would be O'Donnell, which is your Irish English, and De Valdraha, which is your English Irish. But then we also, if you want to have something a little smaller, you can get on Folklore Polka, which actually is going to give you both, and it might be a little bit more portable.
Exactly, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else to add to that, or do you think they're good?
Well, I think they're very good, especially on Folklore Polka, as it on Folklore Polka, it really, it's brilliant in the sense that it's small, but it has so many terms. It isn't just, let's say, older fashioned terms, as in it also has modern terminology, which is a kind of a problem with the older dictionaries, because there's just so many modern things and you'd wonder what are the names for those. But we do have more modern dictionaries, but when it comes to print dictionaries, I would say on Folklore Polka is the most modern of the print dictionaries. So there's lots of technological words that I like. It also has a nice grammar guide in the back and verb conjugation. So it's a nice little thing. It's quite small, but it's like more than 30,000 words, and it has examples as well of those words and context. So it's a very good choice, and it's quite cheap. It's only like €7 or €8 and probably available in most bookshops in Ireland. So.
Yeah, and it's something that's really interesting is actually going through the dictionary and checking out those words and the different examples of how to use them. Like that's really, I find that really helpful, and I've been learning Irish for many years and I find I'm always learning something new from just going through and checking out the examples. And I think a lot of our Pubble members, our community members, are doing the same because we have a Focal na Seachtaine challenge, so a word of the week challenge, where our learners or our practitioners, our Irish language practitioners, use they pick a word every week. Well, they suggest words and then we pick it, and then they give us different sentence examples, including that word. And some of the examples they're coming out with are amazing. And they found some of these examples on the dictionary, or different like sorts of phrases on the dictionary, and then they in the dictionary, sorry, and then they adapt them to what they need. And it's fascinating, and I'm learning all the time from their examples too. I find it great. So the dictionary isn't just for looking up a word and translating it. There are so many other great uses for it as well.
Exactly, I agree totally there. They're very, very useful. Even just reading the dictionary, literally reading the dictionary.
Well, I've said this a couple of times. Yeah, definitely. I've said it a few times. My father has gone back to learning Irish after, 60 years not speaking it. And that's probably an exaggeration, maybe 55 years not speaking it. But and he just sometimes sits down and just reads the dictionary, going through every letter, just to learn more phrases. And it's fantastic. The things he comes out with, that sometimes I have to ask him what they mean. And I've been studying for so long.
There's always so much to learn, isn't there, in Irish? It doesn't matter really where your starting point is. There's always more to learn. Like if you're a native speaker, a cradle Irish speaker, you still have more to learn. There's always something to find out, or you can go back into you can dig into classical Irish or something. There's always more to learn. So it doesn't matter. So it's like people often say, "Oh, there's so much to learn." Well, there's so much to learn for everyone. So that shouldn't that shouldn't discourage you. I guess we'll get on to another question then.
We may mute on chin go malashkel. Yeah, let's go for another question. Let me see. Oh, we have another grammar one from Aidan. Our Gara Aidan. So Aidan is a Bitesize member. Hello in Australia. I think he's in Queensland, but I might be wrong. Maybe he's in the Northern Territory, but I think it's Queensland. So Aidan asks, says, I often hear reference to the genitive. What does the genitive actually mean, and why is it important? Guramahagat. Well, Guramagathin asan gesht. Thank you very much for the question, Aidan. So my basic explanation of this is that it indicates a relationship between nouns. So that could be potentially possession. Can you expand on that a little bit, Siobhán?
Yeah, I would say the exact same, but it branches out to even more than possession. There's about 4 basic reasons for the antishal genitive, as it's called in Irish, the genitive case, and there are different reasons for this, but you can break it down into more simpler terms. So as you were saying there, Gabrielle, there's the reason of possession. So if you're saying someone possesses something, has something, you would use the genitive. So and that's so you would have hata an ear, the man's hat. Now in that case, if fair turns into fear, so it's a bit complicated if you've no idea of it, but it's just getting used to it. That's a lot of it, but that's a good example. And you see there are 2 nouns. One of the basic things is that there are 2 nouns usually, not always is it just 2 nouns that are causing the genitive, but usually there are 2 nouns next to each other and the second noun is in the genitive. And in that case, there's possession going on. The second noun, whatever that means, is usually a person or an object or whatever, is possessing whatever the first noun means. Like with hata near, hat of the man, literally. There are other reasons also, such as, let's see, another reason would be when it can kind of be used to describe, almost as an adjective. It can be used almost as an adjective, and it's also just plainly used for grammatical reasons. So it just happens that sometimes there's a word which can mean, let's just say, a random word, and sometimes the noun that comes after it is in the genitive. That's just the rules. That's the be all and end all of it, kind of. So you can. It's a bit. There is a bit to it, but I would recommend to learn it bit by bit and not try and learn it all the reasons and this and that, but to learn how the words change. Maybe that would be the first, like how masculine words change, then learn how feminine words change, then learn at least how one of the four reasons, as like in possession, when there are two nouns next to each other, coat a Sean, Sean's coat. Learn that, and then learn the other one where it's after, for example, a verbal noun. A verbal noun is ag genitive, ag dúna, doing, closing. So that's why you say ag dúna on dorish. That's why doris changes to dorish. Ag dúna on dorish, closing the door. So that's a reason for the genitive. Another reason is after certain revocable co-hitches, what they're called in Irish. The compound. I can't think of it.
Compound prepositions.
Yes, that's it. Compound prepositions, exactly. So, let's say, erfe and lay. Erfe, two little words, but it means one thing. It means like during. So, erfe and lay, well, for the duration of the day, kind of thing. So that's where it's just after these little two-word phrases. There are a certain number of them, these compound prepositions, and after those, the word is in the genitive. And then in the last case, if there's actually four words. One of them is chimpel, and the others are cush, trasna, and chun. And chimpel means around, so chimplechi, around the house. Chach is house, but changes to chi in the genitive, and that's why it's chimplechi. So it just happens to be after chimpel. There's no real mystery to it. It's just really to know it, and it's hard to remember, of course, at first when it happens. But quite often, if you're listening to Irish a lot, you'll hear chimpel na chire, chimplechi. All of these trasna and water across the road, or crossing the road, that sort of thing. So you hear them so often, you remember them. But you can also read about them, and don't expect to learn them all off by heart or anything. It's something. There's a process to it. So bit by bit, and don't expect to know how the genitive works and when to use it, and to remember to use it every single time. And also, if you forget to use it, you'll probably be understood. It mightn't sound as nice. Like when people make mistakes in English, it doesn't sound pleasant, but you'll probably be the listener, the person who's listening to you will probably be able to figure out what you're saying anyhow.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we always talk about in Bitesize as well, is that it's all about communication and, being able to communicate with someone. And if you make a mistake, it's fine. And also starting out, it can be really overwhelming. Learning any language, I suppose, would be. And we just have to think that some of the rules in English we don't really understand, but we just use them. We just talk without even knowing. We're speaking without knowing the grammar rules, and we don't understand necessarily why things are the way they are. So sometimes, like with your quish, your timpel, your trasna, you just accept that they will cause the genitive. But the other ones, you might be able to understand a little bit. So it's always to do with the relationship anyway. The genitive is always to do with the relationship between the words, and it's just about figuring out what that is, I suppose. We might have a look here. There are a couple of questions that have come through on the chat just to see. We might pop one in. Oh, we've got one from Morgan. So they ask, on Will Focal Cart, so I'm thinking like on Will Shuckyard. So is this right? Is it thieve or no ditch? So I'm thinking you're talking about diagwit or diagwit and dieve, maybe. So for that, you can clarify if you want to pop in another question there, Morgan. But for that, diagwit is for one person and dieve is for more than one person, and that's it. So diagwit is you're saying hello to one person. Dieve, you're saying hello to more than one person. Let's see, is there another? Maybe we'll pop back to our questions that came in before. Is there anyone in particular you'd like we should look at there, Siobhán, do you think? Or will I pick one?
Let's see now. I think I'll give a go at this one now. So we've got one here, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Efthymios, I'm presuming it's a Greek name, and Efthymios is from England, and you have the question there, and it's about double consonants. So my question is about the double consonants. It is right that only when we speak and when the consonants L, N, R are before or after the B, BH, CH, G, GH, MH between them comes a vowel in order to make the word more tuneful. Examples, the GN in gnohoch, the LM in column, and the NM in anum. Could you please tell me if it is right? Do you have any ideas in that, Gabrielle?
Yeah, well, I don't actually know the specific reason behind this, but I would always say with things like this, it's to make it easier to say. You know, so it would be, I don't know how you'd say gnohook without, I mean, there's no actual vowel there, but we just are pronouncing both of the consonants. Same with anum. Same with column. It would be hard to say the word without that little gap in the middle. But as I said, I don't know the specific reason behind it. Would you have the same idea that it's for ease of speech?
That's the only reason I've ever come across for that. And it's just, I think, for the Irish tongue. You find that in English as well. It's just easier. That's why you hear an awful lot of Irish people say film instead of film.
Yeah.
So they pronounce it was spelled Filum. So it's like a little invisible vowel, isn't it? So the word
that's exactly it.
And there's an actual grammatical word for that. It's called an auxiliary vowel, or angotukunta.
I have actually heard of that, but I didn't know what it was in English.
That's it. So a lot of times, an awful lot of time, you'd know the Irish, but not like what we had there with an Ray Vocal Hitcha. It's very easy to know the Irish terms and not the English. But you're right there. That's what's going on. You've got the right hang of it. That's what's going on. There is this invisible vowel. When it comes to the word gnohoch, I would say, as you said there, Gabrielle, there is that invisible vowel between the G and the N in the Munster dialect, because in the Munster dialect you say gnohoch, but elsewhere in the Connacht and Ulster dialects, people tend to say grohoch, and you don't really hear it there. GR, grohoch, like mano, mro. It's not mro, it's mro. So you just run into it with mano, women. Whereas when you say mano is an N, you can hear mano. You can hear like a little U or something between the M and the N.
Yeah. So, that's really interesting. We're running close to our allotted time slot, but we should definitely try and fit in a couple of others. So Bridget, Argar Bridget in New Zealand, asks which dialect Bitesize Irish use, and so I'll answer this quickly. So we don't have a specific dialect with Bitesize Irish. So I would speak a mixture probably of Connemara and Munster Irish maybe, but I'm just a mashup because I learned my Irish in school and in summer colleges and in university. So Siobhán, you'd speak mainly Connemara Irish.
Well, it's kind of more, I suppose, a more broader, I would say more Galway Irish, because that's what I have at home. But I wouldn't really pinpoint it to Connemara itself, but if that makes any sense. And then, but I would have certainly a strong Munster influence and also a bit of an Ulster influence.
And I think I do as well. It's nice to have a mix when, especially when we're facilitating or teaching people from all over the world. And then Owen's Irish is Munster Irish. So yeah, we don't teach a specific dialect. Our thinking is that we like to facilitate the learning of the language, and then later on, when you're at a level that you feel comfortable with, you can pick a dialect if you want and start focusing on that. But yeah, we just go for the just Gaeilge is what we use. And then this question I thought was really interesting from Peter or Gara Padder, Dialects Padder, is Sasna in England. So he says he's been learning Irish for the past year and he'd like to know what level he's at. Is there a sort of questionnaire or series of tests online that he can do to figure out what level he is? And there actually is. So TEG, TEG, Punk.ie, is the Teastas Orpach na Gaeilge. And there you can actually do an online test now that they have that helps you figure out what level you are. And so it's the level, they'll give you what level you are in the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, the CEFR. And so that starts at A1 for Baun level, so foundation. So that would be very, very much beginners. And it goes all the way to C2, so C2, which is, high level masters, or probably people who have been speaking Irish since birth. And I think that a degree in the language gives you B2, so that would be your level 8 degree would be B2. So yeah, you can go on to teg.ie and they have their online test there that you can check out what level you are. And it's really interesting. I did it recently and yeah, it's an interesting test. It's not easy, but yeah, it's well worth it. Let's see. Have we got it? Is there another question there? Do you think, Siobhán? Have we got another one?
Let's see now. There is a question here, quite a grammatical one from James Emerico in America, in Florida, and it's about deriving the root form of a verb and as it is used in passive voice, progressive, etc. And he gives the example of itcher ool. So explanation of that.
So I think your explanation is going to be better than mine. But for that, we don't have there's no infinitive in Irish, so you can't just go to the infinitive and know, yeah, that's the name of the verb or the root of the verb. So I would say it is and now I can't think of the Amshire. Siobhán, can you take over? I can't think of the word.
Well, I always hear it refers to as the root of the verb or the infinitive, so maybe people are just messy with the name of it, but there is like a term for each verb. Yeah. Perhaps it isn't exactly specifically correct to call it that. No specific term is coming to mind either. But there is like let's call it the title of the verb, the basic form of the verb, you might call it, or the root of the verb. It works. The thing is, it can be a little bit hard to see what it is. Like if you get, let's say, a word a verb in the future tense, let's say, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to like dish that one out, to fish out the actual, let's say, the basic form of that word. Now, for example, most of the verbs, I would say, are fairly easy to figure out, because what you can do, if you see a verb, you know it's a verb, and you're trying to find the verb itself, the root form of that verb, or the basic form of the verb, whatever you want to call it. The thing is, what you can do, and you might be right now, sometimes it's a bit tricky, it's not foolproof, but what you can do is if there's a shevu, that is, if there's a H after the first consonant in the word, remove that H. It's the first thing to do. And take the first few letters. Now, if you have Changlan, start typing away. Let's say you have the verb Kenny, or the word Kenny, and you have CH. well, EANNAIGH. So remove the H, that's the first thing. C, remove the H after C, EANN, and just go along. And you might, just by removing the H, you've got the rooted F verb, or whatever you want to call it. No, it's a bit difficult. Now, the good thing is today, though, with the internet, you can just throw in the verb and it'll probably bring it up anyhow, or it'll suggest, like I've seen, as it'll suggest the verb, which verb it is. You see that a lot in Changlan. If you put in any grammatical form of a verb, it'll bring up, or it'll suggest some verbs. It's not always 100% correct, but it usually is. I found that.
I just figured out what I was trying to think of there, and it's the imperative. So if you're saying someone to do if you're telling someone to do something, so say like a shin. So if it's the singular imperative, that's the name of the verb.
Exactly.
And that's what I was trying to think of. So that's how I do it. Is if I think, oh, how would I tell someone to do something? How would I, if I found the imperative, then I would know what the name of the verb is, or the root of the verb. But like you said, I mean, we have so many irregular verbs Oscailga as well, and most of the most common ones that we use are irregular.
But it's only 11, so it's not bad.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think you're right.
Practice them a lot.
Yeah. But you're right. The easiest thing to do is to pop onto Changlan, and you'll figure out a pattern yourself as well. Let's see if we have any questions in the... So Luther is asking in the chat of the different dialects for those that live in the United States. Would the Ulster dialect be better, be a better choice? And I don't think that there's any particular dialect that is going to be better for you. And whatever your teacher is teaching you is fantastic. And most Irish speakers are going to be able to understand you. There aren't that, like there are fundamental differences, but they're not huge. And you will, as you learn, you'll be able to understand the other dialects as well. There's no better or best choice, really. Do you think that, Siobhán?
No, there isn't. Like some of them might be, like one particular dialect may be the best choice for you. Like if your ancestors stem from some place, or if you know a lot of people from that particular area, let's say you know a lot of people from Ulster, the Ulster dialect would be the logical choice. If you prefer the sound of it, some people just prefer the sound of it. Some people find it easier. Some people prefer particular words from a particular dialect. Some people have historical ties. Everything under the sun. So there's a good lot of reasons to pick one dialect over another. But there is something that I think learners sometimes forget, and that's that you need to understand all of the dialects. You can't just pick one dialect and ignore all the rest. It will cause confusion, because then you'll only be able to comfortably communicate within that dialect alone. And it's like in English, if you only choose to speak, let's say, if you only choose to speak American English and you ignore all British English, Australian English, you could, of course, if you speak American English, that's fine. But if you just refuse to know any English terms, like British English terms or terminology or something, or refuse to hear any Australian English, it doesn't work like that. You'll probably meet someone that's from another country that speaks English, and then it'll be a little bit more difficult unless you're used to it. So it's kind of similar with Irish dialect.
Having an open mind is the best thing. And if you, like you said, if you want to learn the Donegal accent or the Ulster Irish because that's where your family are from, or that's the one you like the sound of best, great, do it, but don't block out the rest.
I see Lucy says there that he's self-taught, so that's really good.
Great, yeah, excellent. Yeah.
That's a challenge in and of itself, so that's really good that you're doing so much hard work.
Yeah, definitely. It's fantastic. And we've got a good few people watching at the moment and commenting, which is so nice. And I think it's time for us to probably head off. head off now, but it's been great to answer your questions, and we do love doing our Q&As. And a reminder that we're from Bitesize Irish. It's myself, Siobhán, and Owen, and we have online courses and also an online forum, and Siobhán runs online conversation video sessions with our members every week, which they are really enjoying, or they're telling us they're really enjoying, which is fantastic. And our community is growing all the time. And you can check out our courses and everything that we have available on bitesize.irish. That's www.bitesize.irish. It's been really great to answer all your questions. I've had a great time. Gabrielle and Siobhán.
Gabrielle and Siobhán. Pity we couldn't get to every single one, but I suppose we'd be here all day. Gabrielle and Siobhán agus is ionintach rud gúil sibh. Sásta bheith géisteach linn agus gúil sibh ar fad I cuir sima sa Gaeilge. So it's great that you all came to have a listen to us, and it's excellent that you're all interested in learning Irish and practicing your Irish.
Gur míle maigi agus feicimid go luaise sibh. We'll see you soon. Slán go fóill.
Slán Tamalín.